staff up here, and really the main purpose for that is, number one, I want you guys to have names and faces to the departments that serve the city. First of all, not have any question about who those folks are. And sometimes maybe you don't want to ask a question, but you want to ask something after the fact and be able to grab our folks for a couple minutes and ask something that you maybe don't want to or aren't comfortable asking in a public forum. We want to make sure that everybody's made available to you. So I'll pass it to the councilman. We'll do some staff introductions, and then we'll start with, I'll give a couple updates. We'll start with your questions, and then if we've got some extra time, we usually do, we'll hear from some of our folks up here that can give you some updates, police, fire, and others that can give you some updates on things going around your district and the city as a whole. So thank you again so much. It's a great crowd. Thank you for being here, and we'll get started.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody for being here as well. I know I've spoken to a lot of you in the past, and those of you that I haven't, I hope that I will in the future. What I see as the most important part of this job for me is to represent you on the city council, but also represent you and the issues that are important to you, to the mayor and to the staff. So I'm excited to be here and hear from the mayor and from his staff about some of those important issues, those big issues that are happening right now in the city. And to hear from you about what is important to you. So thanks so much.
All right. I don't know where, Chief, if you want to pass that down to Sherry. We'll start with introductions over here to my right, your left. Over here, we'll introduce you to our staff, and then again, we'll get started. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Sherry Morris. I'm the Development Services Department Director.
Just use that one.
Is it?
No.
Yeah? All right. Is that working? Okay. Oh, there it just went green. Finally got a green light. Okay, sorry about that. My name is Sherry Morris. I can't work a microphone. And I'm the Development Services Department Director. My department includes planning and zoning, inspections, and the Community Redevelopment Agency.
I'm Jenny Craner. I serve as your fire chief.
Good evening. I'm Eric Rando, and I'm the police chief for the City of Pensacola.
Good evening, David Forte. I'm one of the two deputy city administrators.
Good evening. Amy Miller. I'm the other deputy city administrator.
Amy Tudor, Public Works and Facilities Director, and my department covers engineering and operations.
Tanya Bird, Interim Parks and Recreation Director.
Craig Crenshaw, Director of Sanitation, Fleet Maintenance.
Erica Gran-Cagnolo, Economic Development Director.
Meredith Reeves, I'm your Assistant Housing Director.
Lisa Dees, your Parking and Constituent Services Director.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much. Thank you to our staff. This is these days are always a little bit longer than normal days to make sure that we're here for questions. So I'm very appreciative to them for being here. I was able to get a few of these questions. I thought I'd give you a couple updates. I had a press conference today on a few different issues that affect both your district and as a whole. Before I get to that, I do want to say you do have a very engaged councilman that does bring issues and does care about your district, and I very much appreciate his willingness to communicate and work with not just myself and our city administrators, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of different things going on with all these city departments, and then you also have 7 councilmen and women that have questions and concerns that are coming directly from you. And I agree with Councilman Jones that is what we really rely on these 7 folks for, is to make sure, the city's a big city. We got to make sure that we've got these 7 people representing you and bringing those concerns, which I can tell you on a regular basis does help guide what we do or what we prioritize. So he is very engaged and has been certainly helpful to us and our staff to be able to really be your voice for you. So I appreciate that, Councilman, for everything that you've done for us, and certainly I can speak to this last year or so, what you've done to help move the city forward. So before we get these few questions, I will address a couple different things that are coming up that are timely, and then of course Bay Bluffs that affects District 3. And first we're going to talk about recycling. As you know, that you will have Will be the last week where the recycling cans will be picked up as they come through, and we're moving to twice a week garbage service. I have talked about this. You may have seen these updates. What we're really trying to do here is come up with a way that all the effort and energy that the citizens who are recycling are putting into recycling is actually paying off. And so you have to understand, this is not my household. I live in District 7. We recycle. We do the best that we can, making sure that we put the right items in there. But the reality is we're 50% contaminated. Of our 21,000 accounts, half of what goes in our recycling can is garbage. We are not new in this. This is not a new idea. It's not unique to Pensacola. Many cities are getting away from this forced recycling model and trying to come up with some other alternatives that have a combination of what we're looking at. And I'll tell you what a little bit of that is. Number one is we're going to look at simplifying what the materials are that are going to be recycled, and they're going to be simplified into things that actually have a market to be recycled. So there's a very distinct difference between something that's recyclable, and I'll say, let's use cardboard as an example, and there's something that has a market for recycling, like aluminum cans at $1,900 a ton, give or take. So that means there's a market for those aluminum cans that you put in your recycling. The greasy pizza box, the cardboard, all the cardboard I get for my house with a 9-year-old from Amazon, all of those things, there is no market for it. So if it doesn't end up in our landfill, it ends up in someone else's landfill. So it's not an easy decision to have something that has always been. This is how we've done it for a long time. I don't like delivering news that a change in behavior that causes anxiety. That's not an easy decision to make, but I do think it's the right decision for us moving forward. And the update I gave today is we've had several conversations with ECUA Waste Management. I just had a great call with the American Beverage Association, who represents Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and others, who actually go and put grant funding in for recycling alternatives because they're seeing this same issue. Is the materials that they want to be able to get their hands on, and if you have a 2-liter Coke bottle go into recycling, they want to be able to get that back and so they have a vested interest in making sure that the recycling is efficient. So we continue to have conversations. Fred, you just heard from in sanitation, David, myself. We continue to be proactive weekly on this subject. So of course, something long-term will not be in place next week. That is clear. We are working on one short-term solution, which will be a manned recycling drop-off facility at our transfer station. So that's not meant to be the forever solution, but to give you some option to drop off what we are going to consider aluminum and steel cans, plastic bottles, and the heavier plastic. Think about like a milk jug or a Tide detergent bottle. Those are the things that have markets, and that when you take the time and effort and energy, like you've already been doing, to try to recycle, those are things that actually will end up being a positive environmental benefit, and not just something that meets a definition that isn't getting recycled at all. So I appreciate your patience with this. I understand. I've got many emails. I understand your frustration. I know we have a question about it. Happy to answer any questions that you have. But this is one of those decisions that I know it's not an easy one to make. The easy one's to not make it. But I think for the long-term health and sustainability of actually recycling our community, I think it's an important step forward. So I wanted to give that update proactively. And then the second update I wanted to give, and again, we've got staff here that can speak to any specific questions on it, is Bay Bluffs Park, as it affects District 3, of course. There's been a little bit of misinformation that's, I think, unintentional misinformation that was put out the first time we discussed this, that I'm pretty clear was misinformation because of all the emails I've received that said we were permanently closing Bay Bluffs Park. Let me myth bust for a second. We have never said we are permanently closing Bay Bluffs Park. What we said was it's indefinite, and sometimes that gets confused as permanent. Indefinite means I'm not going to look a citizen in the eye like one of you and say it's going to be replaced in 6 months. I can't. The same way I can't tell you that about the airport terminal. I can't. We are actively advocating for $70 million for an airport terminal. We're in design right now, but it is indefinite when we are until we procure that funding. So this is unique in the fact that this is an outdoor structure that we cannot secure. So let's use another demo example that you guys may have heard about in the news, Malcolm Young Center. It is not safe for people to be on the same way that Bay Bluffs Park is not safe for folks to be on. Well, that's a little easier to handle right now. We can put a lock on the door. As you guys may have known, Bay Bluffs Park has been closed since March. It has not been closed from people jumping over a little fence and going back there and using it anyway, and even harder to secure. So it's unfortunate in that for the safety of our citizens and for the liability of the city and you as taxpayers, we might have to take the demolition step a little sooner than we would like to in terms of knowing when we're going to get funding. Think about it. It'd be easier for us to demo and then come right back with construction because you've already got folks working on it and are in there. But our inability to secure a park of this unique setting along a bluff that is outdoor, there's no secured single entrance in and out, and there's no way for us to really monitor it. That's what's causing us to have to jump a little bit quicker to a demolition. But in no way have we ever said that we aren't going to try to procure funding. I've gotten emails about, well, why is this more important than this? That's not what we're saying. We have a Wayside Park seawall that right now that the funding is not secure, and we are moving ahead with a fraction of that project to try to move the ball forward. This would be no different. It just happened later than the other one has happened. So I know it's been a little bit confusing, and I would say a little bit of misreporting might have cost us a lot of confusion here between us and the citizen. But I'm sitting here telling you right now directly, we have full intent to come back with a solution. It may not be the same. It may not be built the same way because of the erosion of the bluff over 40 years of time, because of so many other factors. But we are not getting rid of it permanently as an amenity. We are going to figure something out, and there may be a 2.0 version of what Bay Bluffs is. So again, I tell you both of those updates. Happy to take your questions, concerns, critiques on either one of those. I'm not trying to avoid any questions about that. I'm happy to listen to the feedback. I know our staff is. But I just wanted to kind of jump out in front of both of those topics because I know that those might be more popular or pertinent to this District 3 discussion. So with that, I'll jump quickly to these three questions that we have, and we'll go from there. We'll start with Bill Spain. I see him right there in his patriotic shirt as always.
I'm so grateful you guys could give up your Tuesday night and come down and say hello and welcome East Hill and celebrate this incredible city. It's easy for a meeting like this to go into a complaining session and whatever. But I wanted to speak to a couple of things that really I'm grateful for and I think need to be talked about. I drive by Brent Lane and Interstate 110 a lot. When I pass that intersection, I'm always reminded of the tremendous impact faith-based people and dollars have had on this community. I remember when the Spanish got here in 1559, the first thing they did was they put up a cross. Incredible. In the Civil War times, right before the Civil War, during the war, and a few years after, Pensacola was a sanctuary city. Black slaves knew, they had a network. They knew if they came here, the Spanish said, and the government said, if you come here and work and join the church, you're welcome here. I think that's incredible. And then we know about our hospitals. The old Sacred Heart where I was born, I'm only 85, and the new Baptist Hospital, and just think, I'm so old, I remember Earl Gadsden, the furniture tycoon, and Dixie Biggs, the lawyers, they said, if those Catholics can have a hospital, we Baptists can do it better. And they built the hospital over on East Street. What an incredible thing for the quality of life for our community. And then a few years ago, the poorest socioeconomic part of town, Brownsville, they said, we want a revival. So they built a new church with a new PA system and some space, and they had this itinerant, no-name minister come here for one night. He kind of came here for one night, and the Brownsville revival lasted 6 years, and it transformed the airports. People came here from all over the world and parts of Arkansas. It was incredible. People brought tents and umbrellas. They were standing in line to go to church in Pensacola. It was an amazing thing. And then comes what we're experiencing right now. And then this is another miracle. Arlen and Rebecca Horton, in the 60s, this group of Pensacolians, they said, come down to Pensacola and be the principal of a Christian school. Well, they came, but there was no school. But there is now. And you go, what I'm talking about, and when I first opened my comments, was the incredible construction and positive wonderful energy there on the west corner of Interstate 110 and Brent. That Pensacola Christian College is a miracle. I don't know of any other school that gives each student a $20,000 scholarship every year. And Becca Book, Mr. Mayor, is so effective, they can afford to give every student a $20,000 scholarship there. And they've got, again, students from all over America going to the Pensacola Christian College. Incredible place. And then now, the $650 million Baptist Hospital opened this weekend. Incredible. I wish Earl Gaston and Dixie Bates could see what they started years and years ago. So all that to say, this city of ours has I'm convinced God's favor is on this town. This city is on fire. And I want to thank you for being here at the right time, at the right place to guide Pensacola forward. And that's what you're doing. I remind you that Pensacola and Palafox Street and Wright Street are crossed. At the top of the cross, there's a Jewish temple, right where it should be. So this city is anointed, and when you go to work each day, just realize there are hundreds of people like myself that are praying for you and thanking you for your public service and guiding this city forward. Okay. Now that's my stand, and I'm sticking to it. Number two thing. I don't care if you're 8 or whether you're 80, health care is a big deal. You know more about this, Mr. Mayor, than I do, but Quint Studer's non-compete is over. He's going back into health care. The world's largest and finest optimum human performance and resiliency center is being built here by the IHMC. 2 of the world's finest premier healthcare operations have headquarters a few blocks apart. In my view, that would be a new economic engine and a huge public service. So, and you talked about American Magic coming here, thanks. The airport expansion, thanks. And so there's just so much to be grateful for, and that's why I came. I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm so excited to be a citizen of this incredible town. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I might have Bill come over for my coffee in the morning and get me fired up for the day. Thanks, Bill. Very kind of you. Thank you. All right, let's go to Barry Goodson.
I'm Barry Goodson. I've been living here quite a few years. I served the military during the Vietnam era, more than we deserve when we have to accomplish things like that. And what I'm here for is, one of the things is, and you already mentioned it, the Bay Bluffs, that you pass by every day. Everybody looks and they go by there or they stop there and they participated in the bluffs. And now it needs fixing. Like a lot of things throughout Pensacola that need fixing. And you managed to start fixing a bunch of them. But your attitude in the paper was not, you just didn't have the quite good response that you were really going to fix it. It sounded more like you were going to get rid of it. But anyway, most people enjoy it down there. And it is dangerous when you have rotting wood. So this is the 21st century, and there are some mechanisms out there and some availability that wood gets replaced and the new modernized material can be used. So there's a way to come up with a walk down that is good and safe for the people. But the other thing that I was coming up here to talk, that's my opinion on that. And there's a lot of other people have an opinion about that. They don't want it to disappear. Casey, you should know it's right in your neck of the woods there. And, so let's do something exactly for the people there like it was started out to be. And it's been neglected. And since, Mr. Reeves, you seem to be on the roll of fixing neglect, let's get her done. How about it? And then the other thing I'm concerned about is the garbage. That's what I wrote on my little note there. Our recycling started in, 2009? That's the date on it. That's 14, almost 15 years ago. And during the mayorship, the other 2 mayorships, the last one, Grover, there was never many complaints about the garbage being contaminated. And now the garbage is contaminated, so we're shutting down the recycling. if anybody has any knowledge about what's going on in our world right now, is we are being overtaken by garbage. A lot of it. Of course, there's a lot of people, but there are mechanisms to recycle. And we were using ECUA in their machines there. But it seems like since right before Christmas, the machines over there, they either don't have the right people working there any longer, or they don't have the right maintenance crews there any longer. But we've had multiple breakdowns over there. And apparently that is being pushed onto us as though we got to raise the garbage rates or don't do it at all. Mm-hmm. But I think you're trying to promote, and we're always trying to promote Pensacola into the 21st century. I mean, there's a lot of history of Pensacola. We've heard a little mementos right there, go all the way back to the Civil War. Matter of fact, go over all the way back to the first people to set their foot on the United States of America to make a civilization here, a home, from the Spanish, I believe is who it was. And, it's time for you, Mayor Reeves, to put your hand down, put your fist down, and get the daggum stuff fixed. If we're using ECUA, get them to hire the people that is necessary to run those conveyor belts, to sort through the garbage so we can have that little bit of problem there solved, and then find out a way to do it with our pickup. You know, I don't know the way. I haven't researched any of that, but I know there has to be a way to, I mean, you got two types of garbage trucks prowling our streets, and that hasn't worked very well. So maybe we need a third one, who knows? But we need something, and we need something, maybe a inspection done on the waste that comes from certain areas and determine which little grouping out there is contaminating the most, and then charge that area more money, but don't charge it like Casey Jones. You live in our little, and I live there too. We have great recycling there, by the way. People are all on board with it, and we need to approach that problem in a better way, because we've been since 2009, and 9 months you've been mayor, and now you want to close the whole thing down. Nobody mentioned that. Grover didn't mention that. The character before him didn't mention that. And, now we have you mentioning that, but you didn't have any kind of real solution other than we're going to work on it.
Yeah.
Well, working on it doesn't keep our base perfect. Working on it doesn't keep our ground perfect. Working on it doesn't keep our atmosphere perfect. We got to do something about it so we can make things happen.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that.
Got a lot of people here. You should have some really good ideas. I see a lot of people that do have good ideas.
Yeah.
And let's find out what we can do, because we need to work. You can't just recycle 2 or 3 items and say that these are the money makers. We got to still recycle what we can recycle and waste what we can.
Well, let me. I'm going to forget all your questions. So let me address a couple of these things first. So, first off, I'll start with recycling. We don't dictate when it leaves. Whatever it's worth has no financial impact to the city, is what I'm telling you. So let me myth bust that for a second. What we're talking about is there's single-digit percentage of certain plastics, certain items, cardboard, things like that. Mm-hmm. By the time it leaves your house, in that can, we pick it up, we take it to ECUA. ECUA, and that point forward, of course, of which we have no control, we're talking about single-digit percentages that don't end up in a landfill somewhere down the line. So what I'm saying is, it's kind of like seeing both sides of the curtain. It's called, the term I believe is called wish cycling, which is, we get people that put scrap metal off their car in there because they're like, well, it should be recyclable. It can't be accepted. It ends up in the landfill anyway. So the easy thing to do, really, and I think the parallel of both of the concerns that you have that have now come up is, selfishly, as the mayor, the easy thing to do is not deal with either one of these, to be fair. Now, we've had 50% contamination documented since 2016. So this has been documented for 7 years. The easy thing to do is do nothing about it and say that's what.
Why weren't the other mayors?
I can't speak. I can't speak
that was
to
above
what,
their pay grade.
I can't speak to what the other mayors wanted to do or not do. They probably didn't want to take on criticism about end and recycling, is my guess. But sometimes you have to do what you think is the right thing to do. And all I'm telling you is the story doesn't end with we're taking away these cans. The reason we're taking them away before our solution, also a parallel with Bay Bluffs, is because I was going to have to come raise 21,000 accounts. With the tripling of costs for us to drop it off the ECUA MRF, I was going to have to come raise 21,000 bills to keep doing what we were doing, which was not working. So that's what spurred the tough decision when it happened. So as I said, Fred, David, a lot of folks on our team have already been working on short-term solutions, manned drop-off facilities, and we just got our poll results back Friday, I believe. 50% of our city on the UWF Haas Center poll said that they would be willing to pay a higher fee monthly. It's unfortunate that we live in a world that the only way to delineate between people who will recycle correctly and who won't is monetary. That's not how I would choose for it to be, because same thing, that will have no financial benefit to the city. All we're going to do is take whatever that cost is as a pass-through to pay someone else to come take that recycling. That's not a money maker for us. That is just, we're going to probably end up having to subsidize that in some way to make sure that that stays manageable for our customers. So, but at the end of the day, when the dust settles and we are able to get through a turbulent time, which the end product is everything that we're asking you to put in this new version of recycling is actually getting recycled and helping the environment. 50% contamination, that is garbage. That's not even recyclable materials. Then you take the other 50%, that's cardboard that has no market. That's other materials that have no market. And so that when you start, and then ECUA, the MRF shuts down for 6 weeks and we put it all in the landfill. So when you start whittling down what's actually being recycled right now, it is not a good number. So as I said, the easy thing to do for sanitation for us is to just pretend like we don't know that and just continue to do what we're doing. And if I was more worried about politics and other things like that, I'm worried about, I grew up here, I'm going to live here the rest of my life. I'm worried about what's the best thing for the city of Pensacola. Bay Bluffs is the same way. If a kid got hurt because I thought it was easy to just keep it open for a little bit longer, I wouldn't be able to live with that. And so at the end of the day, what took us 6 months to figure out, we would probably have done this even faster. What took us 6 months is we thought the same thing everyone in here was thinking. We're like, man, my joke was, let's get a cooler of beer and get some 2x4s on the weekend and let's go replace this thing and pop out the rotted boards and put in, let's squeeze some extra life out of this 3, 4, 5 years until we figure out a wide-ranging solution. That we have realized that the major expense that it would take just to do that, to get 2 or 3 further years down the road, would be a significant chunk of what it would take to replace the entire thing. It was not responsible use of taxpayer dollars based on the preliminary estimates that we got. So again, easy thing to do is try to pop as many boards off and pretend like, and then I have a child or one of you go get hurt out there and I knew that it wasn't in that condition. I'd rather get criticized right now about making a difficult decision about this than ever have that happen to anybody that lives here. So sometimes this job requires difficult decisions. That's all I can really say. Again, the parallel of both of your questions. But that's where we are right now, and all I can assure you is that in both counts, we are working with urgency to try to find solutions. Because we don't have one now doesn't mean we won't have one. Everyone's hearing me on record right now saying we're aggressively looking for solutions on both counts. So.
Yeah, well, that's a benefit because this is the 21st century and we are all thinking about recycling. We hear it all the time on the TV, on the news, on the radio, and all that jazz. And so it's not something that is that we don't care about. Everybody does care about it. Yeah. Nobody wants to swim in the bay when it's polluted. Nobody wants to drink the water when it's gasoline, And so you move forward where it should take to solve that problem. And I know there's some pretty smart people out of UWF and anywhere else in the state of Florida that might have come up with a new solution for the different type of walkways to use. I mean, you go out to our beach now and all the wooden structures, at least 90% of them have been removed and they have these little walk paths that go down there. Of course, that's a flat surface and it's not going down a hill. But there is other solutions for, doing the hill climb and everything else.
And certainly when it's time to, when we can start to get some funding, and of course, we will look at what the best possible solution that's respectful of the taxpayer dollar and creates a safe amenity that has some staying power that we can maintain. Those are all things that certainly when we get to that point where the first hurdle is getting the funding, 7+ figure funding to be able to get something replaced. And then of course we will look at every option. And you're right, there are people way smarter than me about that issue that can figure out solutions. And I take a lot of pride in trying to realize what I don't know and go find the people that really do.
We're not questioning your intelligence.
Oh, no, I know.
You are our elected mayor, so we kind of hope you come up with a solution.
Hey, I've stopped recycling and I've closed the park everybody likes. Sometimes people might question my intelligence, but I do believe it's the right thing to do. So thank you, Barry. All right, and we got Joe Wade, and instead of just me monopolizing the time, I certainly, if there's anything you want to talk about with Bay Bluffs Park or anything like that, please do. I don't want to.
I'll add something real quick. The one thing I want to add is just so you know, the mayor and I have had multiple conversations as recently as yesterday about what to do at Bay Bluff Park. So it's something that's on the radar. It is a big priority for us, and it's my top priority for the next year at least, until we find funding and have a plan in place to rebuild it.
And if you've been reading the paper, I will bet on our grants office and our finance office. I think we've been in an unprecedented year for this city in the ways that we found funding to do things that are important in this community. So, we'll see what happens. I don't control what funding streams come down, but if there is one that's going to solve any of our issues in the city, I would bet on our team before I bet on anybody. So. All right, and then we've got Joe Wade, and then this is the last question I have. So same thing, if you got any speaker forms, where'd Dominique go? Oh, there you go. Hand them to Dominique back here in the back, and she'll bring them up. Thanks, guys.
Well, first off, I think Bill Spain starts off the way everybody should. A great tribute, good marketing agent for Pensacola if you need him. 20 years ago, I went to Bill Spain. It's my first chiropractor here, and I'm standing here straight today. No, he's still cracking me up if you want. That's bad. Okay. Anyway, I just here just for informational purposes, provide updates to all those on my petition email list. We were talking about the summit, everybody calls what we call the bike lane confiscation proposal. And they just want me to come in and kind of get updates and find out just 2 questions. Is there any funding behind or solicited by any committees to be included in upcoming budgets toward this summit lane proposal? Is it just sleeping? Is it dead? The second question, kind of related, is having to do with the active transportation plan. Is there any solicited funding related to the active transportation plan you guys passed last month, approved, or anything coming up? So that's all we really want to know.
Sure. Amy can help answer some of that too. I'll answer the first question and say where it sits right now is there's a report. This report went underway before I started as mayor, and this process did. A lot of things have changed since then, including council districts, for an example. And so there's a lot of input that would need to be had. So to answer your first question, no, there is no funding sitting identified for this project. And I've gotten a couple emails that suggest that about Bay Bluffs, so I appreciate you. I should have said that. Asking is that, you have money for Summit, so why don't you have money for Bay Bluffs? And I don't write back, well, no, we don't have money for either one of those, so you don't have to worry about that. But there is some thought out there that there's funding already allocated for that project, with the construction of that project to move forward, which there absolutely is not at this point. So that's where we are with that. And in terms of your other question, I guess, process and procedure, yeah.
Sure. In terms of the active transportation plan, we don't necessarily have any funding that's allocated, but that is where we are going to be diligently working with our grants department and try to come up with other sources to implement different aspects of the active transportation plan. So it's not a plan that's going to sit on the shelf. It's part of the many plans that the city has been enacting to try to have a roadmap moving forward with how we operate in the mobility section. And that is something we are going to be actively, with the active transportation plan, be seeking funding for this year and future years.
I'm obviously familiar with your stance on the transportation plan, but what I'll tell you is how I plan on using something like that is it's supposed to give this is not a black and white issue. We will never be sitting around with static funding to fund every priority of a transportation plan. The idea is what's an area that might be more important if we're going to have, that needs a new sidewalk, that needs this, which areas should be prioritized. There's not going to be a scenario. It's really a guiding document that really speaks more to if money was no object, you would be able to do all of these different things. It helps us decide between this road and that road, this priority, that priority, in terms of safety and the data that backs it up. I know where you are on this document, but that's just so you understand where I'm at. That's the way we look at it.
All right, we just try to find a way to keep track of it. And one way to do it was come to these meetings, maybe go to city council meetings, and maybe join some of these committees that we are now becoming aware that were going on in the background before a lot of these things began, got funded, proposals were, had studies done on. So we're just trying to keep track of it right now.
Yeah.
So everybody in my group can kind of step up if they need to.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Woody Woodruff.
I'm Woody Woodruff. I've lived here 37 years, I guess now, or thereabout. And what I wrote about was the lack of trimming trees over the highways. And I was on 3 different major roads today, and I have an SUV and I've got a motorhome, and I watch the school buses that are moving around, and they're hitting trees all over Creighton Road, down Spanish Trail. Every place in town, you've got limbs that have not been trimmed in I don't know how long. Our neighborhood is just as bad. The majority of people don't have the means to trim up the limbs higher. And it needs, and I've put in work orders through the Pensacola 311. They disappeared. I put them in 3 or 4 different times for specific areas. You go back to look for them, and they've either been written off and nothing's been done, or they're completely missing. They don't show up in the record anymore. And this has been a while now. I give up on it. But the big thing is all over town, we've got limbs that are hanging down that just need to be trimmed up.
Okay, and what I'll do is Amy Tootle can talk about limbs and all that. I know what would be helpful to us is if you can identify where those locations are, we're happy to, of course, take a look. And then Lisa is now over our 311. We've made a lot of progress here in these last couple of months from where we were to where we are. And she can give you kind of a general idea. If that had fallen off and you hadn't heard back, that still might have been part of getting some steps to get that back to where it needs to be. So maybe we can talk about both those issues. Oh, there you go. There you go. And then
That mic's not working.
I think
This mic?
yeah, they're both good. Go ahead, Amy. Yeah, and then Amy and there you go.
Amy, then Lisa? Is
Yeah.
that what you're looking
Yeah,
for?
yeah.
Okay. And then Tanya, and then Lisa?
Yep.
Okay. Amy Miller, Deputy City Administrator. As the mayor mentioned, we are revamping our 311 system, which is basically the number you call anytime you have an issue with something in the city, whether it's a pothole, an overhanging tree, a picnic table at a park, any kind of issue you have with the city, you call 311 and you can put in an issue ticket. We had a dysfunctional system, quite frankly. That was not working, that was piling up tickets, multiple thousands of tickets that were over a year old that nothing had been done with. So we have revamped that system. I'm going to let Lisa talk about that a little more as we move the microphone down the row. And then the other thing I will mention is trimming overhanging trees. In the 6 months or so that I've had Parks and Rec reporting to me, I've learned more about overhanging trees and maintenance of right-of-ways than I ever thought I wanted to learn. It's a complex and complicated issue, and there are various entities that do various portions of that work. Some of those are tied to our Public Works and Public Works Department. Some are tied to Parks and Recreation, some are outsourced to contractors. And I think one thing we could do a better job of is collaborating and making sure that we are all kind of communicating with each other better on where those problem areas are and who exactly is addressing those problem areas. But I will let Amy and Tanya both talk about at least their individual departments' roles in that process.
So in terms of public works, where we usually get involved with the overhanging trees and shrubs and stuff has to do with sight distance issues or any issues like with stop signs or any of our regulatory signs. Just making sure that those things are getting trimmed up so that the citizens, as they're driving around, they are able to see the stop signs and such. So those are the areas that we really take care of in terms of public works. Or, when it comes to anything that has to do within our stormwater ponds or along those areas, that's when we're maintaining the stormwater ponds or trees or anything within the stormwater ponds. I'll let Tanya speak to Parks and Rec.
Thank you. And yes, in Parks and Rec, we have the tree crew on our parks maintenance team. They are primarily the ones that are responsible for going out and doing that trimming along right-of-ways. They're also responsible for removing hazardous limbs and hazardous trees. They work very closely with Chris Stoltz, who is our arborist, who is in Public Works Department. So we do have some collaboration there where we work together. So between the two departments, we try to maintain that as much as we can. Obviously, based on the number of requests that we get, the number of 311s that we get, and trying to prioritize those based on the level of hazardous condition that exists.
So 311 system, as Ms. Miller stated, did go through quite a transformation. We went from roughly 3,000 tickets down to 300 tickets. So if your
Put the mic closer to your mouth.
If your ticket was...
You turned it off, I think. You need to have a green light.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So 311 system did go through quite a transformation. We went from roughly 3,000 tickets down to about 300 tickets. So if your ticket was accidentally closed out during that cleanup, please call the office, call 311, let them know your ticket was closed out and it should not have been. If the ticket was closed out without comments, and you feel like you needed comments or explanation as to why it was closed out because it wasn't an accident, you can still call the office. We might not have the answer for you, but we can get you in touch with the department director who can give you those answers. So anytime you put in the 311, you might not get the answer you want, but if you don't understand the answer that you got, call us back, ask the questions, we'll get you in touch with the right person. We'll make sure you get the answer that you need. Might not be what you want, but we'll make sure you get the answer that you need.
Let's see that one, Amy.
I don't know what blinking green means, but...
All right. All right, next, Diane Crummell.
Okay, yes, Diane Crummell, lifelong citizen here in Pensacola forever. My concern is a couple of things. One of them is the trees. I know the trees on Summit Boulevard, that there was talk of sacrificing the trees for the tennis courts. There was talk of the Summit Boulevard, the road. So our neighbors still talk about those trees on our road. We're all out there on the streets wanting to know what's going on with recycling. That's another thing. But, what is going on with Summit? We're spending this money. I guess we did a study. But yet, we've got, I personally don't see any problems with Summit. Unfortunately, I missed that particular meeting when you had that meeting. But I'm concerned about what the future holds for those trees. Because I know that when they had approved the tennis courts and the improvement, that nowhere, to my recollection, did it say anything about removing the trees. But now the trees, we don't have enough parking. So let's cut down the trees, and let's pave Paradise and, cut down the trees and put up a parking lot.
I'll talk to that a little bit because that conversation was actually before Mayor Reeves was in office about that park there. So what happened was when we were redoing the tennis courts, the original plan had a section that was going to be paved, and then in order to do that, the engineering called for a retention pond, a new retention pond. That retention pond was going to go where there were trees. In that meeting that we had, there were basically two sides. There were people that wanted the tennis courts, and there were people that didn't want the trees cut down. And they came together. It was kind of interesting the way they came together, and they all said, we don't care about a paved parking lot. We'll park in the grass if we get the tennis courts redone and save those trees. And that's what happened there. So there hasn't been any discussion that I've been a part of that had anything to do with more paving, that retention pond being put back in that was in the plans originally. So those trees, as far as I know, should be staying.
I am so glad to hear that, and it's on the record. So,
It is.
we go out there and fight to save our beautiful oak trees.
I can find the
it's
meeting
on
for you if you
record.
want. Yeah.
Okay, everybody heard it. They're not going to do anything with those trees. I need to go out there and protest and try and save the trees.
Well, and to reinforce that, the only conversation based on before I became mayor about the tennis courts after that's been any variable was the material of which they were going to use the tennis courts. There's been no discussions ever come to my desk about some modification or change to a parking lot, a tree, or anything else. So whatever happened at that meeting is what's still happening as far as I know. So unless that's changed. Yep.
I'm glad it's on the record. And I just want to say too that our neighbors on Bluff Circle, we all talk about recycling.
Yep.
We are concerned about the future for our kids and people coming up, future generations. And to not recycle is not the answer. Okay, I mean, mounting up trash and looking the other way, mountains of trash. I mean, go down to South Florida, you see these mountains of trash. How can that be the answer for the future? We are the city moving forward. Not recycling is not moving forward. Now, I understand that it has to have a benefit-cost ratio where you're going to benefit as well as, that it's worthwhile. But how can it not be profitable and worthwhile to save the earth?
Well, I know we've talked about it at length a little bit earlier, but a couple other,
I was here, I heard it.
Oh, gosh, okay.
But I just think it's so important that we absolutely have to have a solution. To do nothing is not a solution.
Well, that's never been the solution. To do nothing has never been the solution.
Random stuff is pretty minimal. I mean, I guess that's a start, but I just feel like we're going backwards.
So let me talk about the first priority. Number one is to try to figure out a way for an opt-in recycling, and what that does is that allows us to vet out the people who that. Right now, we have no mechanism of how to differentiate between. I know, as mentioned before, we absolutely cannot do, which is certain areas of town are charged more or less. We can't do that. I mean, that's not realistic. I understand the thought process there, but that's not going to happen. So the only way to do it, how we can vet it, is if it's important enough to you to pay a couple more dollars a month. Understand, the city will see none of that. That I'm going to have to go figure out either ECUA or Waste Management that is building Murph and Fort Walton. I've had meetings with both. We have a follow-up meeting at our transfer station with Waste Management on October 2nd, I believe. So we continue to work through that to try to figure out a pass-through way. We do not have, because right now you're getting 2 trucks and 2 loops, our staffing and equipment allows us to do those 2 loops, which we will continue to do with the twice weekly pickup. So all we are going to do is figure out a way that we can have a pass-through expense for the folks that want to do it. So any implication that there's some financial driver, all I'm hoping for is when they come back with an estimate of what it's going to cost us to do where only a certain amount of houses are going to opt into recycling, that the subsidy isn't so big that we can't afford it. That's what there's no profiteering to be happening in recycling. And if there was, there'd be a lot more people in the market. They would be knocking on our door hearing that we're saying we want to change it, and they would be coming to do it. This is absolutely going to be a subsidy. I mean, it just is. There's no scenario that allows it to be profitable.
I'm glad to hear that, because I don't think that we need that doing the right thing should involve profit. We've got our children's futures to think about.
Yeah. So anyway, that is our option number one. In a perfect world, we can come up with a reasonable option 2 to go along with opt-in recycling, which would be manned drop-off facilities. The contamination at Summit Boulevard, you guys are probably familiar with that drop-off, is higher than 50%. Because we get a lot of couches, a lot of recliners, we get a lot of mattresses because no one's there. And those are all non-recyclable items. So as you can imagine, those are filling up even more and more now. So that is not a viable long-term solution. What other cities have done, I met with the mayor of Mobile, they've had manned facilities that say, okay, here are these 3 or 4 items that make sense to recycle that actually are helping the environment. You drop off, someone will help you get it out of the car, and it's a process like that. And maybe you do that a select number of days a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, something like that. But in a perfect world, I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that when Waste Management and ECUA come back, and thanks to you guys, if you did fill out the Haas Center survey, I asked that question, and we picked a number and said $8 to $10 a month. Is that something that you'd be willing to take on? And it was about 50-50. Now, understand a survey question is different than when the bill comes. So you have to be conservative about that. You can't assume that 10,500 accounts out of the 21,000 are going to do it. So if we were to be conservative and say, but that helps us. It helps us in our conversations with Waste Management and ECUA to say, all right, well, let's cut that in half. And let's just say if we can get to 5,000 accounts, if we can get to 5,500, somewhere in there, is that enough critical mass for a third party to come in and keep that cost reasonable? So that is what we are aggressively searching for right now. So I think in my perfect world, we would come up with an opt-in curbside solution as well as a manned drop-off solution. So maybe all you do is collect aluminum cans. You only need to go once a month. You don't want to pay the extra fee, and you can come drop them off for free. At a location, someone can help you. So those are the two things that we're looking at as far as solutions right now. I know Gene Mitchell has a question about that too, so we'll go to Gene.
Mr. Reeves,
Mitchell.
I'm Gene.
Oh, hey.
You've impressed me, and guys like me that think that the world and warming and environment is the very most important problem. All right? You made me feel that that's how you feel, and I really appreciate that. My question is kind of to her point, which is, we've heard you say, well, this isn't going to end with us taking your cans away.
Right.
And we've heard you say, when we recycle, only, a small percentage gets recycled. But there's a part of us that are thinking, well, that small percentage is better than nothing. And I guess we're respectfully a little bit concerned that we'll walk out of this meeting and then we all have bigger problems. You, sir, will have bigger problems. And then, what happens? So I guess what me and the young lady in yellow were kind of pushing on is just to respectfully say, what do we have to look forward to with regards to this issue? And I appreciate all the time you spent on it.
Yeah, and look, like Bay Bluffs like this, if I could say to you, hey, in 65 days, I'm going to have, I try to not overpromise things in terms of time frame, so I'm usually pretty conservative about throwing out times and deadlines. So as much as it's tempting to do, as an example, one conversation that Sanitation and I had today was, how quick can we have a manned facility at our transfer station? So if nothing else, every Wednesday, you can drop off these items just as a Band-Aid, just right now to get us as we continue to work through these negotiations. And we're shooting for around November 1st. So we're talking about a matter of 30 days that we would have that up and going. Trust me, I did not get in this job to take something away from a citizen. And I have a feeling that 3 more years of this without any recycling solution is not going to be very amenable to this community. And it isn't to me. And so it's a political will question that you have, and I totally understand that, and I wish I had something tangible to give you, but all I can tell you is it's something that we are having daily, almost daily conversations about within the building. We've met with now 4 third parties at this point about finding potential multiple solutions, including grant funding to help fund some of these manned facilities. So I wish I could offer you, but that wouldn't be fair to you to say, hey, we're going to have something in place by October 20th. It wouldn't be fair to say that. And I'd rather have people have a little bit of doubt about which direction we're going, or have to count on me for a minute versus overpromising and under-delivering on some date that I can't commit to at this point. All I can commit to right now is we have continued urgency to find a solution. And I want the delta between October 1, when I was going to have to raise your bill on an inefficient recycling program, I want the delta between that and when I have something sustainable to get you guys as short as possible. That's what I can tell you now. But more to come on that. And I would say this. I hope to have some concrete dates to give you probably in the next 30 to 45 days, given and then from there, we would be able to say, hey, it starts March 1st or February 1st, that kind of thing. That's my goal right now, is I would say within 30 or 45 days. Tom Thompson?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I want to speak on a couple of things. One, and I'm just going to address them. I don't know if we'll discuss if you want to. As it relates to the Summit project, I'm very opposed to changing it. I think it's good the way it is. The money that we would pay, I think, is nowhere near worth it. Just personally, to change it, we've already got it. Bayview Park here, we had the opportunity this weekend to use it, and we were impressed. my wife's brother wanted to renew their vows, and they're from Italy. And we found out through a series of things at the last minute we had nowhere to go. And I came over here Saturday afternoon. I spoke with a gentleman down there that was running the thing, renting the different ones. And anyway, we talked about it. It worked out well. I was impressed. It went beautiful. We couldn't have wanted it to go any better, and I was appreciative. Your voicemail, something needs to happen to. I spent 20 minutes yesterday finding out when this meeting was. And all I wanted to do was talk to somebody. I kept getting all this stuff. I called every number I could find in the internet, everywhere, everybody, all kind of numbers. I talked with Parks, I talked with everybody. It took me 20 minutes to find out it was at 5:30, and I still didn't get here at 5:35. Was working. Now, as it relates to the trees, as well as getting rid of mattresses and box springs, I actually work with the Waterfront Rescue Mission. I drive a truck. So 5 days a week, we go out and pick up what people have. Generally, every day, somebody either has some mattresses or box springs we do not pick up, or they have a couch or chair that we cannot pick up due to the condition of it. We can only pick up what we can sell. A few years back, we were spending close to $50,000 a year dumping fees for stuff we would pick up. Nobody would buy, because what we pick up, we have to sell as we pick it up, that same condition, because we do fund, the homeless, and we do a number of things, raise a considerable amount of money. But still, there's nothing to do with mattresses and couches. Just a quick thing about recycling. My wife has a couple of cats. She spends a fortune feeding them cats. And we recycle those cans. And generally about every 6 weeks, I get $5 or $6 for all these cans. And we've got stacked up. Sometimes they're two large black bags for just a sense of there's no way to make money on it. But it don't hurt to try.
All right, thank you. Covered a lot of ground there. All right, Tamar Mitchell.
A couple of weeks ago, incidents happened that I was very uncomfortable with. I was taking my daughter to a doctor's appointment, and we were on Bayview Boulevard, and there was a lady on the sidewalk in a wheelchair, half hanging out of it. And we turned around and we went back. And as I approached the woman, I could tell she was unconscious. And this other car was leaving the parking lot where we had pulled in to walk up to her. And the ladies called us over and said, we've already called the police. And they said that they knew that that lady was there, and they had checked on her earlier, and that there was nothing to do, that she does this periodically. And I felt awful. I turned around and walked away because there was no way physically my daughter and I could move this woman. She was way bigger than we were. Of course, later on, someone obviously had come and helped her, or she had maybe woken up because it had started raining. And as I sat in the doctor's office and watched the rain outside, I felt even worse. So what I would like to know is, if you see someone in distress, whether it be mental or health-wise, or with the drug epidemic and homeless all around town, who do you call if you don't call the police?
Well, it's a timely comment for a couple of reasons. One, and I'll let the chief expand on where we are with it further. I know we're starting, I believe, the middle of October, but I agree with you that within our system of how we can help aid mental health issues, homelessness issues on the street, I was getting I would say, a little impatient on counting on other entities to call, that our police have to call and hope that they come out and hope that they have resources and hope that they have. And as I've been in this job and I was able to be real involved with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and what I'll tell you is homelessness, and fentanyl, mental health, these are all issues that there isn't. If one city has figured it out, we'd all be doing it. Some cities are more extreme issues than others, obviously, depending on where you are and what the philosophy of the leadership is. But one of the models that has been working and tracking and data suggested is the ability to have people that work at PPD that are trained in dealing with folks with mental health issues and reducing homelessness, and ultimately allowing those folks to come out, where now, instead of our police officers, who are also in charge of keeping us safe downtown, also in charge of any emergencies that would happen, but why don't we get the best possible professionals we can to have outreach with these folks that can say, hey, we know of a resource here. We have a Rolodex that can help us. Here's your issue. Let us make a phone call, and be proactive instead of reactive on those things. And so we have done that. We initially had funded one, and we decided to fund two. So I'll let Chief give an update on those two, which will be the first of its kind at the City of Pensacola, that we will have two mental health professionals that work at our police department for that exact reason. So
how will you let us know when you have that? Like,
yeah.
How will we know who to call? That's basically
Perfect.
what I'm
I think we've got a number for you too, actually.
Yeah, great question to call. I mean, in any instance when there's a true emergency going on, and a medical emergency, physical emergency, public safety emergency, 911, and also there's a non-emergency number. And to address specifically with the young lady that you're talking about, I think that's the one that was in the wheelchair that we received numerous calls, and we worked with one of our partner organizations to kind of deal with. She has a medical condition that we learned and was documented on, and we've been working with one of our partner organizations to make sure she gets the assistance that she needs. But anytime you would talk to this particular person, she would say she's fine, and she didn't want any assistance, anything like that. And there's only so much that you can make someone do that is, physically and mentally, all that. But particularly with her medical condition, it wasn't something that was in a situation where we could do a Baker Act or something like that. It was something completely different that I won't get all into the specifics of. But like the mayor said, we're in the process of bringing on two what we call community response specialists, and their job is to be very proactive in the community to deal with a number of issues that we face every day that we respond to when it comes to dealing with the unsheltered and dealing with people with mental illness and things of that nature. So they'll be coming on board later this month. There's going to take some time to get them up to speed on policies and procedures, and also the dynamics behind the way we want the program to work, and all the introductions into the system of the continuum of care when it comes to homelessness and mental health, things of that nature. But it's a groundbreaking program. It's something new, something innovative for the community, and we think it's going to be great because it's going to change the way we respond and be a little bit more proactive in dealing with situations that you just talked about.
And those are all of our questions. And will you give the non-emergency number?
435-1845.
And what number is it?
That's the non-emergency police number. And that number goes directly to dispatch.
That number was called, and we were told that that they were aware, and I understand that. But it's like, she still sat there unconscious on the side of the road in the rain. And what does that say about us? Like, I understand that you can't make somebody, but she was unconscious, and I felt like at least somebody could have come and wheeled her under somewhere to get her out of the rain, or got her to a place, even if it was to the mall, like somewhere into shelter.
Well, if we can connect after this, I'll find out about the very specific situation, because I know personally that there have been a number of calls we responded out there, to include EMS responded out there as well. So I'd like to know the very specific date that this situation happened so we can look into, but let's connect afterwards.
All right, we got one more comment that just wanted me to address, the 5 or 6 large hotels proposed for downtown. Could this actually happen? Well, what I'd tell you, and this goes for a lot of projects, whether it be Maritime Park, whether it be large parcels of privately owned property, we are in a very fluid time as it comes to large scale investment. So I just want to be clear, when I say I don't know, it isn't because I don't believe in it or that we have the great problem to have, which is we've got folks who want to invest dollars in our community, which there are many communities who cannot say that. So that's a great start. It's where I'd like to be. That being said, the price of money right now, not just the interest rates, but the amount of money that developers have to put down to be able to even get a loan, 40 and 50 and 60% of the project cost. So there's so much fluidity in the cost of a dollar right now as it pertains to development that I certainly will support these types of projects. I think they would be helpful. We definitely are short on hotel keys within our downtown, but at this point, I think really I would say the project on 13th and Gregory is the one that's furthest along, mainly because they've been working on it since 2019, and through COVID and all of that. I think that's probably the one that has moved forward as I guess it's probably the furthest along. The one on Palafox, the 2 on Palafox, one at the old post office. We've just seen conceptual designs from it, and you probably read in the paper about the one at the old New World Landing, the largest of the one that's being proposed. That at this point is only was denied conceptual approval of the design, and that's where it sits right now. So when I say I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen until a shovel's in the ground, that isn't because I'm pessimistic about the potential investment in the city. I just mean things are so fluid right now, and we see it ourselves with Maritime Park. We see it ourselves with even some of our own projects. So it's great that we get a lot of bites on the line, but we'll see in terms of 5 or 6. And understand, I mean, once one of these projects gets going, that may discourage another one of these hotel projects because there might reach a certain saturation point that if you get enough hotel keys in, one of them may fall to the wayside. So there's too many moving parts to say that we would have 5 or 6 hotels downtown. But I will say philosophically, I like the idea that we have 5 or 6 people interested in investing in our downtown. And where that goes from here remains to be seen. But yeah.
What is the chance, since we've got so many of them to build them, of getting somebody to do something with the Pensacola grant?
So I have had a meeting, and I just sent an email to follow up with a broker from out of town from Alabama that had brought us a hotel chain that has history in repurposing historic buildings and was interested in the grant. Now, understand that this is a private parcel of which they've got to agree. So the city has very limited ability. All I can do is show them the postcard and show them around and say, please help invest in that this is important to us, and which I have done. They have flown down here, this hotel chain, and met with me in person. So where it goes from here, I continue to check on and ask them anything that they need from us. And what does make this property unique compared to just a general private development is that historic structure that is there. So the city could rationalize some kind of help in making sure that doesn't fall to the wayside, versus if someone just had a vacant parcel and they were building a hotel or something, that's the private market. If they were looking for something from the city, that would be a little tough precedent to set. But in this particular case, because of the history of that old train station, we don't want to see that sit there and rot for 10 years and then and lose the value of that. So we haven't it's too early to have what the city would commit to or not commit to. But I would say they know that I'm generally motivated to be able to do something to get that back online. It is an eyesore for us. It's something that I want to see. And remember, hotel rooms, the compounding impact that hotel rooms have in helping our local businesses, helping our helping downtown. And so it's not just the building itself or the property taxes itself that helps the city. It helps all of us. It helps the small business owners that live next to you. All of those different things that could really have a compounding impact. So no, that's my long way to say I don't have an answer yet, but I will tell you that we have had meetings with serious interest, and we told them we are interested in and motivated to help in any way that we can at the city to get that filled.
If the post office goes, then will there be a downtown post office?
I've had a conversation with that particular property owner, and yes, I think the full understanding is that there would be some alternate downtown location. But remember that the federal decision on real estate and things like that, I don't even claim to have full understanding of how that's going to work. But I do know that the U.S. what I've heard is that the USPS would be more amicable to that kind of move with an alternate downtown location. So no, I can't really say anything other than that at this point, as far as I know. Yeah, sure.
I was just wondering who determined that Bay Bluff Park foundation underneath was not safe? Was that a study? Was that some kind of engineer? What was
Amy,
it?
do you want to
Who was it?
talk to that?
Sure, we had a consultant engineer come out and do an initial assessment, and right off the bat, they identified several different areas where they had concerns and recommended that it be closed down. Tanya and I have been out there. I'm a professional engineer, and I've been out there, and I had a lot of concerns when I saw it, especially with the erosion and the sub-foundation with the piers and some of the substructure. So there's so much more that we can't see and we don't know about. And so those were, the initial consultant engineer was the catalyst for it.
So are you concerned at all? Y'all are taking bids for demolition, I understand. But what about taking information on the rebuild ideas and such? If you just go in there and demolish it, you're talking about the erosion, which we all know is overwhelming there. Won't that just make it worse? I'm no engineer, but I know what water does on a cliff when it's left unearthed.
And that would all have to be part of what the demolition plan is making sure that we secure that, because you're right, that is part of the impediment we have there, and that was some of the things that we initially saw. So it would have to be a consideration and part of the demolition plan.
I mean, could we take ideas from our local universities on, there's environmental engineers and things at UWL, at Auburn, USA. Some of these kids, they do projects where they go into the community and come up with creative ideas on how to build structures. My son's at Auburn right now, he was doing that. Maybe that could be a resource since money seems to be short. I hate to see you guys go in and demolish this amazing structure that was dedicated to our community without some type of plan as to how you're going to bring it back for all of us.
I'll speak to the second part. Now, if there was a nonprofit or a university that would like to take over the license to use of Bay Bluffs Park right now and indemnify the city from any insurance liability, I'm happy to have that conversation. I don't think I'm going to get any takers, but I hear you. But when you were saying, hey, if you're going to go ahead and demolish and not have that plan in place, what I can tell you is we probably aren't at the point of with $200,000 dedicated to this, and we think it's north of $1 million. We're probably not at a point. I think it would be unfair to go to UWF students who would be excited about participating in some project and be like, well, we don't know when this is ever going to happen, but thank you for all of your effort. That procedure can still take place. I just don't think that that's where we are in the stage of where we need to be. And also understand, again, just to reemphasize, the uniqueness of this demolition happening before we have a full plan to replace is twofold. Number one is our little barricade with a closed sign is not cutting it. So I can't put the lock on the door. I can't, if there was a way for me to mythically close this where people aren't still going on it anyway, which is what's happening now, if I could do that, I would. I mean, because to your point, why would I even try to incur the cost of demo right now if we could secure it? So Malcolm Young is an example. We're looking at demo. That building was unfit for use. but we can put a lock on the door. We can secure that facility that doesn't allow anyone to go in there. I can't keep your kid or your brother or your sister from going out on that right now other than a little barricade. And if someone got hurt because we left it, and so that unfortunately speeds up our timeline to have to demolish, because we know that that's going to be the reality, that people are going to be able to use that facility without us knowing and jumping a fence and getting hurt, and then we don't have anybody patrolling down there. I mean, there's so much exposure that we would have in that point. So it's not the way we want to do it, but we can't come up with any other solution. I will say, Amy and I and we've had plenty of conversations about, if there is the pavilion at the top, if we can get 5, 10 feet, anything that we can preserve at the top in the short term, we're not going to just take that down. If the top of it's structurally sound, anything that we can keep, we certainly will, even in the short term. But the second, why I said it was twofold, is the second is that goes off the presumption that we're going to replace it exactly as is. The erosion you speak of may not allow us to do that. I mean, it may not be prudent with your money to go back and say, well, because this is how they did it in 1982, this is how we should do it today, because the dynamic of that bluff may not even allow that, and that's why we are where we are. So,
don't we have better technology today to build it back better than before?
Well, look, there's technology that can let us build a $100 million Bay Bluffs Park if we want. There's the dynamic between technology and cost, so if money was no object, absolutely. I mean, we could probably do all sorts of stuff there that would be amazing. But there's a marriage between those two things. So, as I said, that we are not ruling out when it's time for construction. We're not ruling out that we would have community feedback, and especially if we do change if there's a new version of what this looks like, maybe it doesn't go as far down, or maybe it goes this way instead of that way. Those are things that we're going to want community feedback on anyway, if we aren't just repairing exactly what was already there. So I think there'll be plenty of opportunity and time for that conversation. We just, unfortunately, financially aren't in a place. I think it would be misleading for us to ask a lot of experts their opinion on reconstruction when we don't even have. I don't. If the 200,000, Amy, correct me. If the 200,000 is enough for demo, I'll be surprised. So that may not even be enough to get us. We may have to go find funding to get it knocked down before we could even come back and replace it.
Telling a grandchild one day that there used to be this beautiful park off the scenic highway where I could walk through the trees, see the bay, enjoy nature. But we don't have it anymore. We got rid of it. We demolished it. It's not here anymore. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just, sometimes when you go in and do these things, they don't always get brought back.
Yeah. I understand, and as I've said, I mean, my only caveat to that is I can't have somebody's grandchild get hurt or get killed out there. I can't have that. Everyone can be mad at me. They can not vote for me because it hadn't been replaced yet. That will be okay, and I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I allow one of our citizens, one of our children, to get hurt out there. And when I've gotten emails, especially when the misinformation that we were going to permanently, that we weren't going to look for other options, that was kind of my response, is to say, I mean, if you were me and I now know that it's not safe for people to go on, as engineers and experts have told me, how can what is my other option? I mean, is it to just knowingly do that and say, it's fine, and then I think if anybody knows those two facts and put themselves in my position, I don't know that I have a fair solution that it's not the fun one, but it's the right one. And that's just where we are with it right now. And trust me, this is, I've said this on TV. If you think I got in this to come close your parks, I promise you that's not why I ran this for this, or to take your recycling can away. That is not why I took this job. I'm making these decisions because I grew up here. I lived at 3470 Rothschild Drive. We used to walk to Bay Bluffs Park. Then we moved over off Scenic Highway and Hyde Park Road, and we used to walk to Bay Bluffs Park. I went to St. Paul's. We went over there every afternoon. I'm very familiar with that park, and I would have gotten in trouble if the chief maybe was in place at the time goofing off back there. But so I get it. This is not why I want to do it. And if anybody thinks that this is fun for me, it's not. But I think I also was elected to try to do the responsible thing, and to do the responsible thing even when it causes frustration and causes anger with our citizens. So I hate it, but we are going to be active as we can to replace it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just add, as long as I'm in office, which is at least another year, that's what I'm going to be focused on. So until it's done, and I see some people from the Bluffline organization here, at least one person here, somebody from the Parks and Rec Board. I've had conversations with both of those entities just in the past week, talking about ideas, and maybe it might be part of my downfall, but I feel like I'm always a little too much of an optimist, maybe. But I see this as a great opportunity to reimagine what it is. It was great the way it was, the way it is now, before we knew about the damage, but I think it could be even greater. And there are resources to find money out there, and I know that we've got these awesome grant writers and folks on the staff, but also community partners that are willing to help with that as well.
All right, I know we got about 10 minutes left. If you don't mind, I'd love to give just a couple updates. We always make sure at every one of these that you hear from our police department and fire department, as well as, and certainly anybody else up in this group that wants to give a quick update on a project or anything that was mentioned. I'm sure they're tired of hearing me talk, so I'm sure that they may have some quick updates you want to share. So anyone up here, if there's something you want to share or comment on that was talked about today, make sure you do so. But I'll pass it down to Chief Granner.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. So obviously for the fire department, we want you to be focused on prevention, fire prevention and injury prevention, and your firefighters work very hard to do that. Our fire marshal's office is out in the community inspecting every building in the city and participating in a lot of risk reduction programs. A big one that is happening now, we want to focus on smoke alarm Saturdays, which begin October 7th. We'll be walking through different neighborhoods on Saturdays during Fire Prevention Month and checking smoke alarms, installing smoke alarms. The mayor will be out in the street with us, and we'll be touching a community in 7 different communities before the end of December is our goals. But I don't want you to wait. If it's not in your community, please sign up, and you can connect with us by emailing 311@cityofpensacola.com or calling 311. You can also reach out to the fire department, and the phone number's up there. So please check your smoke alarms. We'll come and replace batteries. If you can't reach it, we'll take care of that. We have several other community risk reduction programs, including car seat technicians. We have begun a new infant safe sleep education program where your firefighters and emergency medical technicians in their normal response of duty will be providing some safe sleep education to parents when they're in the homes. So we have a lot of interesting things we can share with you about that. And the other prevention thing would be, we are in storm season. We have 2 months left of that. Hopefully that's it. And so I want to encourage you to understand your risk in your home. And your risk is water and wind. So know your home, know your zone, know your plan. You can connect online at cityofpensacola.com and find out more information about that. And the change is, remember the 72 hours, first 72 on you? It's changed. It's 1 week on you. So we want the city of Pensacola and Escambia County to be resilient. We want you to be resilient. Please reach out to us if we can help provide any information with that. And the last thing, Mayor, if I may, I want to mention October the 4th, there's going to be a national test of the emergency alerting system. You know, on the television and the radio, how you get that emergency update. Well, you're also going to get it on your wireless emergency service, too. This will be a national test October 4th at 1:20 p.m. Everyone's phones are going to go nuts. So be ready for that, and that's what that is, testing that system. It's important you get those alerts so that you know if you are in a storm surge area or there's a tornado coming. And that's all I have from the fire department, unless there's questions.
Real quick, what happened at the recycling plant? How did it catch on fire?
Different recycling plant.
And that's a metal recycling plant. We don't know exactly what caused that fire because of the level of damage, but there are different types of materials in there, and one of the materials that, remember like old Volkswagen engines had magnesium engine blocks in them, and that's a combustible metal that can cause fire. So there's different things that could have caused the fire. There was some lightning in the area and some other things like that. So.
All right, from Pensacola Police Department, we got a couple things coming up in the next couple weeks. Starting next week, we have 2 events. National Night Out National Night Out is an event that's held every year. Normally it's held in August, but here in the Gulf Coast, August is really, really hot. So we elected to make it a little bit more comfortable for our residents of Escambia County, and we're having it on August 3rd, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. at the Legion Field, 1301 West Gregory. So please come out and join us, your Pensacola Police Department, your Escambia County Sheriff's Office, a lot of your first responders, a lot of different civic organizations, government organizations going to be out there, but it's about to talk about safety and promote community and a sense of community policing as well. The next day, because we just like to have a lot of fun, at 7:30 in the morning, we're going to have a Coffee with a Cop. It's actually National Coffee with a Cop Day, and that's going to be at Bodacious Cafe at 407 South Palafox. So if you didn't join us the night before, or you joined us the night before, come and join us again the next day at Bodacious for National Coffee with a Cop. Also on October 3rd, we continue with enhancing our youth engagement. We start our Beyond the Badge program, where we're going to be engaging with a number of juniors and seniors in the community that's in high school to kind of help them prepare for adulthood through a program that our captain, one of our captains, Captain Eric Goss, has been headlining and working to continue to engage our youth in the community and make sure they're ready for society when they graduate from high school. And a lot of good things going to come out of that. A lot of great speakers we got in line for the youth to make sure that they're prepared. And then lastly, a new program that we announced probably about a month ago. We have partnered with the Derrick Brooks Foundation, this being Derrick's hometown. And knowing a lot of us growing up here, we're partnering with this foundation, and we're going to be starting a new program here in Pensacola called Community Police Relations. We've been partnering with them for about a month now. I've been working with them in the Tampa area to kind of get a feel for how the program is ran down there. But I think that's going to be another groundbreaking youth engagement program to help our youth prepare for the future, build police community relationships, and to build a better citizen all about from Pensacola. Thank you, unless there's any other questions.
You want to repeat the place and date of that Coffee with the Cop?
Yes, Coffee with a Cop will be October 4th, starting at 7:30 in the morning. It's going to be at the Bodacious Cafe at 407 South Palafox. So if you're free, come out and join us.
If I may, I always like to take the opportunity when in a public setting like this to let you know that if you go to our website, we just about a year and a half ago, we implemented what we call our capital improvements dashboard. It's an interactive map in which you can actually go on our website, click the link, and it'll pull up the map of the entire city of Pensacola, and it'll bring up dialogue boxes for all the capital improvement projects or projects that the city of Pensacola are working on, whether we're in a planning phase, an actual design phase, a construction phase, and it's really neat. It's an opportunity for you to immediately get information on what the project is, where we're at, who the project manager is, so you can actually reach out to individual. A lot of times we get questions about Roger Scott tennis courts. Who's the project manager? Who do I reach there? There's an opportunity to get on there. You actually get the individual's name, number, email, whatnot. You can contact an individual. It also gives you a little bit of a little snapshot of where we're at with the project. But it's a really neat interactive dashboard. If you go to cityofpensacola.com, you can either search projects or capital projects or scroll all the way to the very bottom and hit the link that says Capital Improvements Dashboard. Please do that. I think it's a great way for us to engage with you without. And I think we update that on a monthly basis, if I'm not mistaken, Amy.
Yes.
So every month that gets updated. So it's not something that you'll click a project and it'll be 6 or 7 months back before you see an update. So it's a neat feature we offer, and I will always want to take the opportunity to let you know that when we can. So thank you.
At the sometimes I go on the radio and they'll say, hey, wait, I've got 30 seconds left. Tell me about where you are in recycling. And so at the risk of doing that, just because it's front-facing projects that you might be interested in, Erica, do you mind giving just quick updates on Baptist Hospital and American Magic, where those stand right now?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh.
Okay. Sure. Well, someone already mentioned American Magic. So we've been spending a lot of our time in economic development working through that project. And we have recently selected a firm to start the design of the rehabilitation of the existing Warehouse 10 at the Port of Pensacola. That's the large warehouse that you see when you drive up Bayfront Parkway, the one that looks like it needs to be finished. So we're going to finish that. We're going to add a 50-foot addition, and we're going to add a dock and a boat ramp. And so that will create a perfect home for American Magic Magic when they return from Barcelona end of 2024. So please feel free to reach out to Economic Development Office with any questions related to that project. Also, please check out American Magic on Facebook. You can follow them and their training efforts while they're in Barcelona. Some of you may have heard that there was a watch party for a recent pre-America's Cup race that happened. I think it was last weekend. By the way, American Magic won. So that's really exciting news in terms of our chances of potentially being a future host location for a future America's Cup. So check out their Facebook page. It is amazing. They put out great videos. They talk about Pensacola being their new home base. And so please follow them on Facebook and reach out with any questions related to American Magic. Also, I'm gonna dwell on American Magic for a little bit. The purpose of bringing, there are a lot of reasons that we are excited about this project. One of them has to do with job creation and the types of jobs that American Magic will bring. They're not just sailing jobs. This is a very high technology effort that the team makes to win these American Cup events. And so I recently heard some anecdotal stories of Pensacolians who were hired and who are now in Barcelona with the team. So they're hired for, computer programming type jobs, engineering type jobs. And so I know that there are at least 3 Pensacola residents that are spending the year in Barcelona working with American Magic. And of course, they'll return home to Pensacola with the team. And that's only going to grow. So I can't help. We're looking to share their stories with you all so you can see all of the impacts, not just to make Pensacola the sailing capital of the United States, but also to create these exciting, engaging jobs for our youth to help promote sailing across Pensacola. So there are a lot of benefits to this project. Additionally, I know there's already an article in the Pensacola News Journal related to discussions with Baptist Hospital and with the city potentially receiving the land donation of approximately 36 to 50 acres of property there. One of the focuses in economic development relates to housing, workforce housing, affordable housing, even market rate housing. So we're in the process right now of hiring an individual who will head up that effort to make sure that we have housing. Again, housing for our youth. When our youth grow up, we want them to be able to afford a nice place to live and have an exciting, well-paying job here in Pensacola. So we're working on those efforts, but specific to Baptist property. These microphones are designed very poorly, pardon me. So we're very close on that. We're spending a lot of time because we know there's a huge opportunity there related to community development with that property. So please, stay posted, and I'm sure we'll share with the media progress in that area.
All right. Well, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that came out, and I really appreciate you coming. The first time I had a town hall a couple years ago, I think there were 5 people there. One of them was City Council. I was one of them. Yeah, you were one, yeah. And then the next one, the staff, there was about this many staff and about 5 people there that were not staff. So this is a great turnout. I really do appreciate you coming out, and I also want to thank everybody up here and the mayor for coming and spending a little extra time after work, doing some more work. Thanks so much. Oh, yes, sir. Barry.
Yeah, I'm Barry again, going to say something. And it's about the sailing that you're discussing there. In 1980, we were the center of attraction for sailing in Pensacola. It brought 250 competitors. I was one of them. And it was for participating in the Olympics. We had all of North America in Pensacola. And for some reason, Pensacola decided to, hey, we had it once, we don't need it anymore. Well, we've got an opportunity right now with the Magic coming here and their whole entourage. That's a lot of folks, a lot of energy, and we can make it happen for the kids again. Because we used to have, out on the bay, out there at Pensacola Beach, at the quiet water area, we would have kids, all ages, learning how to sail and hoping they would go to the Olympics because it used to be accessible. And we can do that again in Pensacola, and we can bring an entourage of a lot of folks here. and a lot of money. And then maybe those hotels you're talking about, you can put some new people in them. Anyway, keep going with that. It is a big time thing. I came within 1 point of going to the Olympics.
Well, I think I did one of those lessons and I gave up because I kept getting hit in the head with the boom. Is that what you call it? But I will reiterate, that is a big deal. I mean, this is a top-tier professional sports team that is now based here in Pensacola. And a lot of people don't realize that. I didn't realize that at first, but I mean, it's like NBA, MLB. It's a big deal. So that's really exciting.
Go ahead, Amy.
I just wanted, since the Port of Pensacola reports to me as one of the departments, I always like to give them a shout out when I can, because sometimes I think they don't always get the credit they deserve. The whole America's Magic evolution here in Pensacola started because Clark Merritt at the Port of Pensacola didn't shut the door in this crazy guy with a ponytail and flip-flops and shorts on face 5 or 6 years ago when he said, hey, do you have some dock space we can rent so we can train here in the winter? That's literally how it started. And so I always like to make sure as this thing has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and there are so many people in the community that are involved in making this happen in terms of the permanent headquarters of American Magic being based in Pensacola, Florida. I always like to give that shout out back to Clark, because he could have easily gone, no, we don't have any room for you, but he didn't. He heard them out. He found a way to make them fit and be able to operate at the port and still do port stuff at the port. And from that tiny little acorn, this has grown and grown and grown exponentially, and it is super exciting for the city. It's super exciting for the port, but I just always want to give that shout out to Clark when I have the chance to do so.
Yeah, appreciate that. And also about the youth sailing, that's one other example of some of the potential domino effect that not only are they going to build the boat here and the manufacturing here, they are, as you can imagine, have relationships in youth sailing, and they want to develop American sailing because they want those folks to come sail for American Magic when it's their time. So there are so many opportunities, from research to advanced manufacturing, composite-based manufacturing this is really just the sailing aspect, as Erica mentioned, is just one facet of what could be with them calling Pensacola home. So again, very, very excited about that. I don't ever do one of these things without ending and thanking everybody that's up here and everybody that works for them. You have 800 people that maybe we might miss your can one day, we might miss a spot in the park, but I guarantee you we've got people who love this city and who really work their tail off to make this a great place for you to live. That doesn't mean don't share those thoughts or those emails or those ideas that you may have. Certainly, we won't always get it perfect, but we don't lack passion for making this place the way you want it to be. We all live here. We all are raising our children here. We all want this to be a great place. So a huge thank you to everybody that's up here tonight, and the folks, the directors who aren't, for what they do to really make this city go. And so there's a lot of focus on things that I do when I'm up in front of a camera at a press conference, but these are the folks that help get that done and get it across the finish line. So a huge thank you to them. And with that, I know we're a little over on time. Thank you guys so much. Thank you again for the great turnout, and we'll see you next time.